The street was quiet that night. The rain had stopped only an hour ago, and the road still shined with water. A single man walked down the path, his shoes making small splashes with every step. His name was Daniel, a simple human with a normal life. He had no idea that tonight would change everything. The city lights behind him grew weaker as he moved closer to the old alley. This alley was not a place people liked to visit. It was dark, damp, and full of strange echoes. But Daniel took this way often. It was faster, and he liked the silence. He pulled his jacket tighter as the cold night wind touched his skin. Then he heard it. Drip, drip, drip. It was not the sound of rain. It was too heavy, too slow. Daniel stopped walking and looked around. The street was empty. A broken street lamp flickered above him, giving weak light. He felt his heart beat a little faster. Drip, drip. The sound came from the alley. Daniel turned his head, and for a second he thought he saw something move. Something shining like liquid under the weak light. His first thought was simple. Maybe a leaking pipe. But the sound was too strange, too alive. Curiosity pulled him forward. He stepped into the alley. The smell of wet stone and rust filled the air. His eyes adjusted to the dark. At first there was nothing, just walls, trash cans, and shadows. Then he saw her. At the far end of the alley, a figure was sitting on the ground. The figure looked like a woman, but her body glistened as if it was made of water. Her hair dripped like liquid threads, and her arms shivered as though she was too weak to move. Daniel froze. His mind shouted at him to run, but his feet did not move. His eyes were locked on the strange, wet figure. She raised her head slowly, and her eyes met his. They were not human eyes. They glowed faint blue, soft yet full of pain. She opened her mouth. Her voice was low, almost broken. "Help me." The words shocked Daniel. His fear grew stronger, but so did his curiosity. A strange woman dripping like liquid asking for help? His brain searched for logic, but none came. He took one small step closer. Are you okay?" The figure tried to rise, but failed. Her body seemed heavy, as if every movement took all her strength. She shook her head. Water slid from her arms and hit the ground with a wet splash. "Please," she whispered again. "Help." Daniel looked around. The street was still empty. The world was silent except for her weak voice and the dripping sound. His breath turned heavy. He wanted to run, but something inside told him he could not leave her there. He walked forward, slow but steady. His eyes stayed on her glowing blue ones. He crouched down, close enough to see her face clearly. She looked young, but her skin seemed more like liquid than flesh. Small drops rolled off her cheek as if she was melting. "Who are you?" Daniel asked, his voice shaking. She tried to speak, but her words broke into gasps. Her body trembled harder. She reached out a wet hand, and for a second Daniel hesitated. Then he reached out too. Her hand touched his. It was cold, soft, and strangely alive. When their hands met, Daniel felt a small shock like static electricity. Her glowing eyes widened. She whispered something he barely understood. "They are coming." Before Daniel could ask what she meant, her body leaned forward. She collapsed against his chest, too weak to hold herself up. He caught her, surprised by how light she felt. It was like holding water inside a human shape. Daniel looked around again, panic rising in his chest. He could not leave her there. Whoever she was, she needed help. But her last words echoed in his mind. They are coming. Who were they? Why was she here in this forgotten alley? And why did she look like something not from Earth? He pulled her closer, her wet body dripping against his clothes. The cold went through his skin, but he did not care. He stood up, carrying her in his arms. Step by step, he walked out of the alley back toward the dim city lights. The street was still quiet, but Daniel felt eyes on him. He looked up. For a moment, he thought he saw something moving in the night sky, a small flash like a star, but too close, too low. Then it disappeared behind the clouds. Daniel swallowed hard. His heart beat faster than ever. He looked down at the strange woman in his arms. Her glowing eyes were half closed, her voice only a whisper now. "Don't let them find me." And with that, she went silent, falling into unconsciousness. Daniel stood frozen in the middle of the street, holding a wet alien maid who had asked for his help. He had no answers, no plan, only questions. But one thing was clear. His ordinary life had just ended. Daniel pushed the door of his small apartment open with his shoulder, holding the strange woman in his arms. The lights inside flickered weakly as he stepped in. The air smelled faintly of wet clothes and coffee from earlier in the evening. He kicked the door shut behind him and laid her gently on the old couch. Her body soaked the fabric instantly, leaving a dark patch of water. He stood there for a moment, breathing hard, trying to understand what had just happened. The woman lay still, her chest moving with shallow breaths. Her glowing blue eyes were closed now, but her strange liquid-like skin still shimmered under the dim light. Daniel's hands shook as he removed his wet jacket. Every sound in the room felt louder. The hum of the fridge, the ticking clock, even the dripping from her body. He ran a hand through his hair, whispering to himself, "What the hell is going on?" He walked to the kitchen and grabbed a towel. When he returned, he tried to dry her face, but the water seemed endless. No matter how much he dabbed, her skin stayed wet, like her body was made of liquid. Suddenly, her eyes opened. Daniel froze, the towel still in his hand. "Where am I?" Her voice was weak, almost trembling. "You're safe," Daniel said quickly. "This is my place." "You collapsed in the alley. I didn't know what else to do." She stared at him for a long moment, her glowing eyes filled with both fear and trust. Then she tried to sit up, her hands trembling as she gripped the couch. Daniel moved to help, but she raised her hand slightly. "No, I can manage." Her voice broke again, and Daniel noticed how fragile she looked, even though she was not human. "What are you?" The words left his mouth before he could stop them. She looked down at her dripping hands. Her silence stretched until Daniel thought she wouldn't answer. Then slowly she spoke. "I am not from this world. I came from the stars, but not by choice." Daniel felt his stomach twist. His brain screamed that this was impossible, but his eyes told him otherwise. "An alien," he whispered. The word tasting strange in his mouth, she nodded faintly. "I was a maid, a servant aboard a great vessel. I cleaned, I served, I obeyed. But I saw things I was never meant to see." Daniel leaned closer. "What things?" Her voice shook. "My masters. They hunt worlds. They strip them of life. They were coming here. I tried to stop them, but I am weak. I stole something from them, something they want back." She touched her chest, and Daniel noticed a faint glow under her skin, as if a small light lived inside her. Daniel's throat went dry. "You mean Earth? They're coming here?" She met his eyes, and in that moment, Daniel felt the weight of truth pressing on him. "Yes, if they find me, they will find this planet. If they get what I carry, Earth will fall." Silence filled the room, broken only by the dripping of water onto the carpet. Daniel's heart raced. He had always thought of himself as ordinary, just another man in a city full of strangers. But now, sitting across from him was a living alien warning him of a danger greater than anything he could imagine. He tried to steady his breathing. "Why me? Why ask me for help?" She closed her eyes for a moment, then whispered, "Because you found me. Because I cannot do this alone." Her words sank deep into him. He wanted to argue, to tell her he was no hero, just a man who worked, ate, and slept like everyone else. But something about her tone, the quiet desperation, made him stop. He realized she truly had no one else. The woman winced suddenly, clutching her side. Daniel rushed forward, his hands hovering helplessly. "What's wrong?" "They can track me," she gasped. "Every drop of me carries a signal. When I bleed, when I shed. They see." Daniel glanced at the wet couch and the trail of water leading to his door. His chest tightened. "So they know you're here?" She nodded weakly. "Not yet, but soon." Fear crawled up Daniel's spine. His apartment suddenly felt too small, too exposed. He imagined shadows outside the window, eyes watching from the street. He swallowed hard, trying not to let panic show on his face. "Then we need to hide you," he said, or clean this up, or something." She looked at him, her eyes glowing softer now, almost like a plea. "I cannot run forever, but with you, maybe I have a chance." The room fell silent again. Daniel sat on the edge of the couch, staring at her. He could feel his own life breaking apart, the weight of choice pressing down on him. Help her, and he would be part of something dangerous. Ignore her, and maybe Earth itself would be lost. Before he could answer, a faint sound echoed from outside. It was low, metallic, almost like a hum. Daniel's blood ran cold. He stood and moved to the window. In the distance, above the city skyline, faint red lights blinked in the sky. They were moving, slow, deliberate, and not like any plane he had ever seen. "They are here," the woman whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel's hand gripped the curtain tighter. His mouth went dry, but his heart burned with a strange mix of fear and courage. For the first time, he realized he was no longer just a man in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was part of something much larger, something he could not escape. And the night was only beginning. The night outside Daniel's window no longer felt like the same city he had known all his life. The skyline was dark except for a few scattered lights, but above, beyond the clouds, faint red glows drifted like silent predators in the sky. Daniel pressed closer to the window, his breath fogging the glass. His hands were cold, but his heartbeat was hot and fast. He had seen planes. He had seen drones on TV, but these were different. They moved too smoothly, too deliberately, like hunters scanning for prey. Behind him, the strange woman sat on the couch, her body still dripping faint streams of water onto the floor. She looked weaker now, as if every moment drained more of her strength. Yet her eyes were wide open, glowing blue, fixed on the sky. "They have found me," she whispered, her voice carrying a heavy weight. Daniel spun around. "Already?" "But you said they are close," she interrupted. Her hands trembled as she touched her chest where the faint glow pulsed beneath her skin. "I feel their signal. They're hounds. They're machines. They will not stop." The word hound sent a shiver through Daniel's body. He had never felt so powerless. His small apartment, which had always been a place of safety, now felt like a cage waiting to be broken into. He wanted to ask her what they should do, but the look in her eyes told him the truth. She didn't know either. A strange hum rolled through the night air. It wasn't loud, but it was deep enough that Daniel felt it in his bones. The windows rattled faintly. The woman's skin shimmered brighter for a moment as if reacting to the sound. "What is that?" Daniel asked, his voice almost a whisper. "They send a pulse," she said. "It wakes the signal in me. They are locking onto my trail." Daniel's chest tightened. He looked down at the wet marks on his floor, the dripping couch, the trail of water that led all the way back to his door. Panic rose inside him. "Then they know exactly where you are," he muttered. She lowered her head, shame flickering across her glowing eyes. "I tried to hold it in, but I am too weak. Every drop, every trace, it betrays me." The hum grew louder. Daniel's heart raced. He didn't know what he expected. Police? Soldiers? Maybe some strange alien ship to land right in the street? He backed away from the window, his breathing fast. "We can't stay here. We have to move." The woman looked at him, her face pale and wet. "Move where?" "They will follow." "They always follow." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then at least we don't wait here for them to smash down the door." He pulled his jacket back on, though it was still damp. He looked around the room. There was nothing he could use as a weapon, nothing that could fight whatever was coming. Still, doing nothing wasn't an option. Suddenly, a sharp crack split the air outside. Daniel rushed back to the window. A streak of red light cut across the sky, vanishing behind the buildings. It was silent for a moment, then another followed. They weren't fireworks. They weren't planes. They were searching, scanning. The woman stood slowly, though her legs shook beneath her. "They send the first scouts," she said. "Machines built to sniff the signal. Once they confirm, the hunters will arrive." Daniel felt his stomach twist. He turned to her. "Then what do we do?" "You must know something. You escaped them before, right?" She closed her eyes for a moment, her dripping hands clenching into fists. "I escaped by luck, not by strength. But now I am weak. I cannot fight them alone." Her words struck him hard. He realized again how insane all of this was. He was just a man, standing in a small room talking to a glowing alien maid about hunters from the stars. But the fear in her voice, the truth in her glowing eyes, it was real. Too real. Another hum shook the building. This one was sharper, closer. Daniel thought he saw a shadow pass quickly across the window. His throat went dry. "They're here," he whispered. The woman staggered closer to him, clutching his arm. Her skin was cold but soft, dripping against his sleeve. "Listen to me," she said, her voice suddenly urgent. "If they capture me, they will use what I carry. They will open the way for their fleet. You must not let that happen." Daniel shook his head quickly. "Wait, what are you saying? You're talking like I have a choice in this. I don't even know what you're carrying." Her eyes blazed brighter for a moment. "You will know. Soon." Before Daniel could answer, a loud metallic thud shook the air outside. The sound of claws scraping against the street followed, sharp and inhuman. Then another thud. Then another. The hum of machines grew louder, filling the night with a chilling rhythm. Daniel's pulse hammered. He backed away from the window, his body tense. The woman's glowing eyes widened and she whispered a single word. Drones. From outside came the first distorted screech, half mechanical, half animal. Daniel grabbed her arm without thinking. We have to run. But deep inside he already knew, running might not be enough. The street outside was no longer quiet. The hum of machines grew louder, filling the night with a low, heavy vibration that shook Daniel's chest. His window rattled. The lights in the apartment flickered once, then steadied. Daniel and the strange maid stood frozen, listening. Then came the first impact. Thud. The sound was close. Too close. Something heavy landed on the pavement outside. Daniel rushed to the window and pulled the curtain just enough to peek. His breath caught. A creature stood in the middle of the street. It wasn't human, not even close. Its body was a twisted mix of metal and flesh, shaped like a hound but taller than any dog Daniel had ever seen. Red lights glowed where its eyes should be. Steam hissed from vents along its sides, and its claws scraped deep lines into the asphalt. The maid's voice shook behind him. A hunter drone, the first of many. Daniel pulled the curtain shut, his chest pounding. It looks like it could tear a car in half. How are we supposed to fight that? The maid didn't answer. She staggered forward, her wet skin dripping faster now. She placed her hand against the wall, her glowing eyes fixed on the door. Stay behind me. Daniel wanted to argue, but before he could, the door shuttered. Something outside scraped against it with a screech of metal. Then came a second thud, another machine landing on the roof above. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. They've surrounded us, the maid whispered. The door burst inward with a violent crash. The first drone shoved its way inside, claws ripping the wood apart like paper. Its glowing red eyes scanned the room. A mechanical growl rumbled from deep inside it. Daniel stumbled backward, tripping over a chair. His heart pounded so hard he could barely breathe. He expected the maid to collapse again, too weak to move. But instead she stepped forward. Her body shimmered, liquid sliding across her arms like living armor. She raised one hand and her skin stretched, forming a sharp blade of water that glistened under the light. For the first time, Daniel saw not weakness but power. The drone lunged. Its claws slashed toward her, but she moved faster than Daniel thought possible. Her arm shot out, the water blade slicing across the drone's leg. Sparks flew as metal tore. The creature stumbled, but it did not fall. It roared, a sound that made Daniel's bones vibrate. Another crash shook the ceiling. The second drone dropped from above, landing in the middle of the room. Daniel scrambled to his feet and pressed against the far wall. The small apartment suddenly felt like a battlefield. The maid spun, her liquid form shifting. She slammed her arm blade into the second drone's chest. A jet of steam exploded out, filling the room with heat. But the drone's claws struck back, raking across her shoulder. She cried out, splashing against the wall before reforming. Daniel's fear burned into action. He grabbed the nearest thing he could, a broken chair leg, and swung it at the first drone. The wood cracked uselessly against the metal body, but it made the machine turn toward him. Red eyes locked on Daniel. Oh no, he breathed. The drone lunged. Its claw slashed down, but before it could hit him, the maid surged between them. Her body wrapped around the claw like liquid chains. Sparks danced as she tightened her grip. Run! She shouted. Daniel froze. I can't just leave you. Run! She roared again, her glowing eyes fierce. But Daniel didn't move. Something inside him refused. He looked around desperately, searching for anything that could help. His eyes landed on the kitchen counter, on the stove. He rushed toward it, yanking the gas knob. The hiss of escaping fuel filled the air. The drones turned toward him, their sensors flickering. Daniel grabbed a lighter from the counter, his hands shaking. He flicked it once, twice, nothing. The drones began to advance. On the third flick, a small flame appeared. Get down, he shouted. The maid understood. She released the drone's claw and threw herself flat. Daniel tossed the lighter toward the stove. The room exploded with fire and sound. The blast knocked Daniel off his feet. The heat seared his skin, and the air filled with smoke and sparks. The drones shrieked in mechanical fury, their bodies thrown back by the explosion. One slammed against the wall, sparking wildly. The other crashed through the broken door and out onto the street. Daniel coughed, crawling across the floor. The maid reformed beside him, her body trembling but still alive. She looked at him with wide eyes, surprise mixing with something else, respect. "You are reckless," she whispered. "But brave." Daniel forced a shaky laugh. "Guess I'm not the running type." Outside, the night echoed with more metallic thuds. Shadows moved against the burning light of the fire. More drones were coming. The maid gripped his arm, her wet hand leaving cold trails on his skin. "We cannot stay, they know. They will send the hunters now." Daniel stared at the broken doorway, smoke billowing into the street. He could see shapes moving in the distance, more machines, more red eyes glowing in the dark. His chest tightened, but his voice was firm. "Then we fight," he said. The maid's glowing eyes softened for a moment, then hardened with resolve. She nodded once. Together. And outside, the hunters closed in. The fire in Daniel's apartment burned low, smoke drifting into the night. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, but they were too far away to matter. The city would believe it was just another gas explosion. No one would ever imagine alien hunters had crashed through a small apartment in search of a wet, glowing maid. Daniel and the woman had escaped through the back stairwell, moving fast through narrow streets. Now they sat inside an abandoned warehouse near the edge of town. The place smelled of dust and rust, but at least it was quiet. Daniel paced across the cracked floor, his mind spinning. He had just fought alien drones, watched his home explode, and nearly died. And now, sitting in the shadows, the strange maid looked even weaker than before. Water dripped constantly from her skin, pooling around her like a growing puddle. Her blue eyes glowed faintly in the dark, but the light inside them seemed to fade. "You need to tell me the truth," Daniel said, his voice shaking between fear and anger. "Who are you really? Why are they after you? And what the hell is that thing inside you?" The woman looked at him for a long moment. Her lips parted, but no sound came out at first. Finally, she whispered, "I am not only a maid. That was the role they gave me on the ship. But I was more than that. I was a guardian." Daniel stopped pacing. "Guardian of what?" She placed her hand against her chest. A faint glow spread under her skin, brighter than before. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Daniel stared, transfixed. "Inside me," she said softly, "is a seed of power. Ancient, alive, older than my people, older than the hunters themselves. It is called the core. It can change worlds, heal them or destroy them. My masters found it long ago, and they used it to conquer. I was chosen to clean their halls, to serve their meals, but one day I discovered the truth. I saw them feeding the core, twisting it, preparing to use it on your world." Daniel swallowed hard. "Earth?" She nodded. "Yes, your planet is next. The core responds only to certain beings and your species. Humans are rare. You have something inside you that allows the core to unlock its full power. That is why they want Earth. They want you." Daniel blinked, his chest tightening. Wait, are you saying humans can use this thing?" Her glowing eyes fixed on him. "Yes, and that is why I ran. I stole the core. I hid it inside my own body, bound to me. They cannot take it without killing me, but now they know where I am, and they will not stop until I am dead. And Earth belongs to them." The warehouse fell silent, broken only by the sound of dripping water from her body. Daniel sat down on a broken crate, his head in his hands. It was too much. Aliens, hunters, a glowing core that could destroy his world. He was just a man, ordinary and small. How could he possibly stand against something like this? "I should have just walked away," he muttered. But when he looked up, he saw her face. Pale, trembling, but filled with something he hadn't noticed before. "Hope. You saved me," she whispered. "No one else ever tried. You carried me when I could not walk. You fought when you could have run. That is why I believe maybe you can be the one." Daniel's heart pounded. "The one to what?" "To wield the core," she said. "To stand against them. To protect your world." He laughed nervously, shaking his head. "I'm no hero. I'm just a guy who fixes computers and pays bills late." Her glowing eyes softened. "Sometimes heroes are not chosen by themselves. They are chosen by the moment." Daniel stared at her, his hands trembling. The core pulsed inside her chest, the light shining through her wet skin. He could feel its energy from across the room, humming in the air like a hidden heartbeat. It called to him, though he didn't understand how. Suddenly, the warehouse shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The sound of engines rumbled outside. Daniel leapt to his feet and ran to a broken window. His blood went cold. In the distance, across the dark city streets, shadows moved. Not just drones this time, something larger. A ship. Its underside glowed with red lights as it descended slowly between the buildings. The hunters had arrived. Daniel's breath caught. They found us. The maid stood, her body trembling but her voice firm. Then there is no more time. You must decide. She stepped closer, her wet hand touching his chest. Her touch was cold but strangely comforting. The glow inside her grew brighter, shining through her body like a hidden star. If you take the core, she whispered, we will be bound. You will be hunted as I am hunted, but you will have the power to fight. If you refuse, then I will face them alone and Earth will fall. Daniel's mind screamed in every direction, fear, doubt, disbelief. But deep inside a fire flickered. He remembered the drones, the explosion, the way he had refused to run. He was no hero, but he also wasn't a coward. The ship outside sent out a low pulse that shook the windows. Red lights scanned the streets like giant eyes. The hunters were searching, closing in fast. Daniel looked into the maid's glowing blue eyes. They were filled with fear, but also trust. His breath slowed, his fists tightened, and finally he nodded. Show me how. The maid's lips curved into the faintest smile. She pressed her glowing hand harder against his chest. The light grew brighter, wrapping both of them in a soft, trembling glow. Outside, the hunters prowled closer. Inside the warehouse, a choice had been made, and the war for Earth had just begun. The warehouse was heavy with silence, but outside, the night shook with the sound of engines. The hunter's ship floated above the streets like a black shadow, its red light sweeping across the city. Every pulse from the ship made the ground tremble, and every tremble made Daniel's heart pound faster. Inside, the maid pressed her glowing hand against his chest. The light from her body grew brighter, shining like liquid fire. Daniel felt warmth spread through him, first in his chest, then crawling through his arms and legs. His breath caught as his skin prickled. What's happening to me? He gasped. She looked at him with calm, glowing eyes. The core is waking. It is reaching for you. If you accept it, it will bind to your spirit. If you refuse, it will leave and I will stand alone. Daniel wanted to pull away. Every instinct told him to run, to hide, to survive. But when he glanced at the window and saw the hunter ship scanning the streets, he realized survival was no longer an option. Not for him. Not for Earth. His voice shook. If I take it, will it kill me? The maid's eyes softened. No, but it will change you. You will never be the same again. Daniel let out a shaky laugh. After tonight, I was never going to be the same anyway. Her hand pressed harder against his chest and the glow flared. Daniel's body arched as energy surged into him. It wasn't like electricity, it was deeper, older, like the world itself was pouring into his veins. He cried out, clutching her wrist, but she held firm. Breathe, she whispered. Do not fight it. Let it enter. Daniel forced himself to inhale. The burning pain softened into warmth. His vision blurred, then sharpened again. For a moment he saw images that weren't his. Worlds of fire, skies of crystal, oceans that sang. He saw armies of hunters marching, ships blotting out the stars. And then he saw himself standing in front of them, glowing with the same light that now filled his chest. The connection broke suddenly, leaving him gasping. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest. The glow inside him was faint but steady, like a second heart beating beneath his ribs. The maid knelt beside him, her wet hand on his shoulder. It is done. The core has accepted you. Daniel looked down at his hands. They trembled. But when he focused, a faint shimmer of blue light traced across his skin before fading. He felt stronger, sharper, like a hidden part of him had been unlocked. He looked at her, fear mixing with wonder. What now? Her eyes glowed brighter. Now! You fight. The ground shook again. A loud crash echoed outside as more drones landed near the warehouse. Daniel ran to the broken window. His stomach tightened at the sight. 4 drones crawled across the street, their red eyes glowing like blood. Above, the hunter ship loomed, its engines humming with power. They're here, Daniel whispered. The maid stood, her liquid body shimmering with resolve. Then the time for choice has passed. You have chosen. Daniel turned to her, panic rising. I don't even know how to use this core thing. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You will learn, she said, her voice steady. The core responds to around your choices. Daniel's chest tightened. Courage. That was the word she used. He thought of the alley, of carrying her in his arms, of standing against the drones when he could have run. Maybe she was right. Maybe courage was all he had left. The door of the warehouse shook violently as claws scraped against the metal. Daniel backed away, his hands trembling. He felt the faint glow inside his chest pulse faster, as if it was waiting for him to command it. The maid stepped beside him. "Do not fear. The core is with you, and so am I." The door bent inward with a sharp screech. Daniel's body tensed. He closed his eyes, forcing himself to breathe, to focus. He imagined light, strength, protection. And then he felt it, the warmth in his chest spreading into his arms. When he opened his eyes, faint blue energy flickered across his hands like fire. Daniel gasped, staring at them. "It's real." The maid's lips curved into a small smile. "Yes, you are becoming." The warehouse door burst open. The first drone crawled inside, its red eyes locking onto them. Daniel stumbled backward, fear surging. But then he raised his hand almost by instinct. A pulse of blue light shot forward, slamming into the drone's chest. Sparks flew and the machine staggered. Daniel froze. I did that?" The maid's eyes glowed with pride. "And you can do more." More drones poured into the warehouse, their claws screeching against the concrete floor. The hunter ship's pulse shook the walls as if the whole building was about to collapse. Daniel's chest pounded, but he clenched his fists. "Blue light flickering stronger now, I guess," he said through shaky breath. "This is the part where I fight." The maid nodded, liquid armor forming around her arms. Together, the drones lunged. Daniel raised both hands, and the glow inside him burst outward like a wave. The air cracked with energy as the machines were thrown back. The core pulsed harder in his chest, and for the first time, Daniel didn't feel powerless. He felt ready. But deep above, the hunter ship shifted. Its red lights grew brighter, its engines roaring louder. This was only the beginning, and Daniel knew the real test was still to come. The warehouse shook like a drum as the hunter ship descended lower, its engines roaring. Red light poured through the broken windows, painting the floor in blood-colored patterns. Drones filled the doorway, their metal claws scraping against concrete, their red eyes burning. Daniel stood in the center of the room, chest heaving. The core pulsed inside him, every beat echoing like thunder in his bones. Blue light flickered across his arms, crackling like lightning. He had never felt so alive and never so afraid. Beside him, the maid's liquid body shimmered, her glowing blue eyes fierce. She was weak, but she refused to collapse. "They will not stop," she whispered. "If we fall here, Earth will fall next." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then we don't fall." The first drone lunged, its claws raised high. Daniel thrust his hand forward, and a blast of blue energy erupted from his palm. The drone slammed back into the wall, sparks spraying from its chest. Before he could breathe, two more charged at him. Daniel ducked, rolling across the floor, then raised both hands. The core pulsed, and a wave of light burst outward, throwing the machines into the air. The maid struck next. Her arms stretched into liquid whips, slicing through the metal of another drone. She twisted, fluid and graceful, striking again and again. But for every drone they destroyed, more poured in. The warehouse became chaos. Sparks, smoke, and the roar of engines filled the air. Daniel fought with raw instinct, each movement guided by the core. Energy blasts tore through machines, but each strike drained him. His chest burned, his vision blurred, yet the power inside him refused to let him quit. Then a deep shadow passed overhead. Daniel looked up through the broken roof and froze. The hunter ship loomed directly above the warehouse now, its red underside glowing with power. A hatch opened on its belly, and a new sound filled the night, a low rising scream of energy. The maid's eyes widened. "They are charging the cannon. If it fires, the city will burn." Daniel's stomach dropped. He pictured entire blocks of buildings wiped away, people screaming, fire everywhere. He couldn't let that happen. "What do we do?" he shouted. The maid grabbed his arm, her wet hand trembling. "The core can stop it, but it needs both of us." Daniel swallowed hard. "Tell me how." She pressed her forehead against his, glowing blue eyes locked onto his own. "You must give it everything. Your courage, your will, your life, if needed. I will guide the power. Together we can strike the ship." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "Life." She said it so calmly, but he knew what she meant. If he failed, if he gave too much, the core might consume him. Still, he looked at her, and he knew the answer. "I'll do it," he whispered. The drones surged again, but Daniel and the maid ignored them. They clasped hands, their bodies glowing brighter. Blue light from him mixed with her liquid shine. weaving together until the warehouse was filled with a storm of energy. The core inside Daniel's chest pulsed harder, faster, until it felt like a second sun was burning inside him. The hunter ship's cannon glowed red, ready to fire. "Now!" the maid cried. Daniel roared, thrusting both hands upward. The core's power exploded out of him, surging through the maid, amplifying into a wave of pure blue light. It tore through the roof, a beam that split the night sky. The cannon fired at the same time. A river of red energy poured downward. Blue met red in a violent clash above the warehouse, the sky cracking with light. The ground shook. Windows shattered across the city. For a moment, it felt like the whole world held its breath. Daniel screamed as the core drained him, his vision blinding white. His body felt like it was breaking apart, but he pushed harder, refusing to let go. "Not my city. Not my world." The maid cried out too, her body stretching and glowing, pouring every drop of herself into the beam. Then, silence. The red energy shattered. The hunter ship's cannon cracked and exploded, fire ripping across its hull. The ship tilted, engines failing, smoke pouring from its sides. With a roar, it fell, crashing into the distant skyline in a storm of flames. The drones in the warehouse froze, their red eyes flickering. One by one they collapsed, lifeless metal clattering to the floor. Daniel dropped to his knees, gasping, his chest burning. The glow of the core dimmed, but it was still alive inside him. He had survived. Barely. The maid collapsed beside him, her liquid body weak, almost transparent now. She looked at him with tired but proud eyes. "You did it. You saved them." Daniel forced a weak smile. "We saved them." For a moment, the warehouse was quiet, only the sound of fire in the distance. Daniel looked out the broken window at the falling smoke. Relief washed over him. They had won. But then, the maid's voice trembled. "No, not yet." Daniel turned sharply. "What do you mean?" "We destroyed the ship." Her glowing eyes dimmed. "That was only one. More will come. The hunters will not forgive this, and now, they know you hold the core." Daniel's blood ran cold. He looked down at his hands, faintly glowing blue. He had become a beacon, a target. The maid placed her hand gently on his chest over the core. "You are bound to me now, and together, we are bound to war." Daniel stared at her, his heart heavy. He had saved the city tonight, but the fight was far from over. Above them, the night sky was quiet again. But Daniel knew it wouldn't stay that way. Somewhere out there, more ships were waiting. More hunters were coming, and when they arrived, he would be ready.